Humanity had once thrived among the stars, exploring vast corners of the galaxy with an unmatched curiosity. Their technological advancements were unmatched, their reach stretching across worlds unknown to most. But their golden age was abruptly interrupted by a grave threat, a species known as the Traxx, vicious and war-hungry, teetering on the edge of extinction due to humanity's sheer strength. Yet humans, ever strategic, chose an unexpected path. Rather than risk a war that could devastate the galaxy, they withdrew. They went into cryo-sleep, preserving their colonies, their knowledge, their very essence, for a future when the stars might once again be safe. But humanity didn't leave the galaxy undefended. Hidden throughout the galaxy, in forgotten corners, they placed sleeper colonies and advanced warning systems. These sentinels lay dormant, undisturbed for millennia. Humanity's fate intertwined with the stars they had once dominated, waiting silently for the right time to awaken. As humanity slumbered, the galaxy moved on. The Traxx, once on the brink of annihilation, began to recover. With no humans to challenge them, they rebuilt. Their empire spread slowly at first, subjugating weaker species that posed no significant threat. But with each conquest, the Traxx grew bolder. Their warships moved from planet to planet, crushing resistance, enslaving populations, and declaring themselves rulers of the galaxy. Their brutality knew no bounds, and soon, no race dared oppose them. The Traxx reveled in their newfound dominance. They believed themselves unstoppable, the supreme force in the galaxy. Their rulers, intoxicated with power, celebrated their victories with cruelty, showing no mercy to those beneath them. They pillaged planets, exploiting their resources and destroying any culture that threatened their rule. The Traxx were arrogant. After all, what force could rise against them now? The galaxy was theirs to control, and with each passing year, the legend of the humans faded into myth. Among the conquered worlds, whispers of an ancient race that once rivaled the Traxx circulated among the enslaved. These whispers spoke of the Sleepers, a powerful species that had vanished, leaving behind traces of their civilization across forgotten sectors. The Galactic Council, a group of species barely surviving under the Traxx's iron grip, took note of these rumors. The Council, though powerless against the Traxx, quietly discussed the possibility of these sleepers. If they still existed, perhaps they could be the galaxy's last hope. But to the Traxx, the stories were nothing more than laughable myths. The rulers of the Traxx Empire mocked the idea that a long-extinct species could rise again. In their eyes, there was no force left in the galaxy that could challenge them. The Council's discussions were brushed off as the delusions of the weak. What threat could possibly emerge from a forgotten past? Arrogant and overconfident, the Traxx pushed deeper into uncharted territories, expanding their empire further. In their greed for more resources, they set their sights on an uninhabited star system, one that appeared to be nothing more than a relic of a time long past. It was there, on a desolate planet, that the Traxx made a grave mistake. Unaware of the significance of the system they had targeted, the Traxx launched an attack, believing it to be an easy conquest. Their ships descended upon the abandoned colony, unleashing destruction as they always did. But in doing so, they triggered something ancient and powerful. Deep within the colony, a long-dormant alarm blared to life. Advanced systems, untouched by time, began to hum with energy. And in the darkness of space, humanity stirred. The silent sentinels that had watched over the galaxy for millennia had finally been disturbed. The Traxx had unknowingly triggered the awakening of a species far more advanced, far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The first sensation was cold, a deep chill that pierced through the fog of centuries. Eyes flickered open, bodies stiff from millennia of sleep, as humanity stirred from their long cryo slumber. Disorientation gripped them at first, a struggle to piece together fractured memories. How much time had passed? What had become of the galaxy? The world they had left behind was a distant echo, and now, they were thrust into a future they hadn't anticipated. In the dim light of the awakening chambers, a voice broke the silence. It was the AI, humanity's ancient guardian, its synthetic tone calm but carrying the weight of grim news. The galaxy, it explained, was no longer the one they had known. The Traxx, once a species on the edge of extinction, now dominated the stars. It was their recent attack on a forgotten human system that had triggered the alarm, pulling humanity from their long sleep. The humans exchanged glances, a shared understanding settling over them. This was no longer the era of peaceful exploration. They were waking into a galaxy more hostile than ever. There was no time to reflect on the past. The leaders of the human colonies convened, quickly assessing the situation. They pored over the data that had been collected during their slumber, pulling up star charts and reports from the AI. The rise of the Traxx was detailed, every conquest meticulously recorded. Their old enemies had become the rulers of the galaxy, spreading like a plague across the stars. It was clear that the Traxx's arrogance had grown unchecked in humanity's absence. Humanity, once explorers and diplomats, now faced a stark reality. The Traxx ruled through fear, their empire built on the subjugation of countless species. The humans reviewed their options carefully. Some argued that they should first seek out any surviving allies, perhaps the remnants of the Galactic Council, to gauge the broader state of the galaxy. Others were more direct, pushing for immediate action against the Traxx. They knew the dangers of rushing in, but they also understood that waiting too long could give the Traxx time to respond. The debate was intense but brief. The decision was clear: direct confrontation was not an option, at least not yet. Humanity needed to be strategic, methodical. Their technology, though ancient, was still far beyond anything the Traxx could comprehend. They could use this to their advantage, striking with precision where it would hurt the most. A series of tactical strikes, carefully coordinated, could cripple the Traxx's hold on key systems, weaken their infrastructure, and sow fear among their ranks. To carry out this plan, an elite task force was assembled. These were the best of the best, highly trained operatives from a time when humanity's military prowess was unparalleled. Their mission was clear: infiltrate Traxx-controlled territories, gather intelligence, and execute targeted attacks designed to destabilize the Empire. They would move in silence, using guerrilla tactics to remain undetected while they dismantled the Traxx's power from within. They knew this would be a long and calculated campaign, but it was the only way to ensure their survival. As the task force prepared, a quiet determination spread among humanity. This was not a war of conquest, it was a fight for survival. The Traxx had become the oppressors, and humanity would not allow their reign of terror to continue. Their advanced technology, long hidden and preserved, was now their greatest weapon. The humans knew that once they struck, there would be no turning back. But they were ready. The resolve was palpable. They were no longer the peaceful explorers of old, but they had not lost their spirit. Their strength lay not just in their technology, but in their resilience, their ability to adapt and survive in even the harshest of circumstances. Humanity had awakened, and they were prepared to face whatever challenges the galaxy would throw at them. The Traxx had made their move, but now, it was humanity's turn to act. The galaxy was about to change, and the humans were determined to ensure that this time, they would not be forgotten. The Traxx, still oblivious to the fact that their recent actions had awakened a sleeping giant, dispatched a fleet to investigate the human colony they had discovered. To them, this was routine, another insignificant system to conquer and add to their ever-expanding empire. No one among the Traxx leadership anticipated any resistance. After all, they believed that humanity had been long extinct or forgotten, its presence nothing more than a relic of the past. The Traxx fleet surged into the human system with confidence, their ships cutting through space with ease. But as they crossed into what they thought was an uninhabited territory, they were met with an unexpected and sudden force. Cloaked human ships, invisible to their scanners, descended upon them without warning. Energy weapons of immense power tore through the Traxx vessels, and gravity-warping devices disoriented their fleets, leaving them vulnerable and exposed. The humans' technology, far more advanced than anything the Traxx could comprehend, left them defenseless. The Traxx commanders, caught off guard, struggled to understand the magnitude of the attack. Their ships crumbled under the weight of the assault, and no matter what evasive maneuvers they attempted, they found themselves outclassed at every turn. Panic rippled through the Traxx ranks as the realization sank in. They had awakened an enemy that had far surpassed them. What they thought would be an easy conquest had transformed into a nightmare. As the battle raged on, the Traxx were forced into a retreat. Their losses were severe, and with each passing moment, the scale of their defeat became clearer. They hadn't just stumbled upon an abandoned colony. They had encountered the reawakened force of humanity, and the price of their arrogance was steep. With heavy losses and confusion reigning among their ranks, the Traxx ships turned away from the system, desperately fleeing the battle zone. But the humans, calculating and strategic, chose to let them go. They could have annihilated the remaining Traxx forces, but this was not about winning one battle. Humanity had a much larger plan in motion. They knew that allowing the Traxx to retreat would send shockwaves through their empire. Word of humanity's return would spread quickly, creating fear and chaos among the Traxx leadership. The humans had reclaimed their place in the galaxy, and they intended to do so on their terms. In the aftermath of the battle, the human task force moved swiftly, capturing several Traxx prisoners. These captives, disoriented and terrified, would provide valuable intelligence about the current state of the galaxy. The humans had no illusions that this was the end of their conflict with the Traxx. This was only the beginning. But now, they had the upper hand, and they would use every advantage they could muster to reclaim what was once theirs. Far from the battlefield, the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. They had witnessed the impossible. The sleepers, the mythical humans, had returned. For centuries, the Council had dismissed the idea that humanity still existed, assuming they were nothing more than a story passed down through the ages. But now, the truth was undeniable. Humanity was back, and with their return, the balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift dramatically. The Council, composed of species barely surviving under the Traxx's reign of terror, debated their next move. They understood that the reawakening of humanity would send ripples throughout the galaxy, altering alliances and potentially sparking new conflicts. The question now was not if humanity would challenge the Traxx, but how far they would go in reclaiming their place among the stars. The Traxx leadership was in complete disarray. Word of their fleet's defeat spread quickly, throwing their empire into a state of panic. The Emperor, once supremely confident in the Traxx's dominance, now found himself demanding answers. His advisors scrambled, struggling to explain how a race thought long gone could resurface with such overwhelming strength. Their intelligence had no record of humanity's hidden colonies, and now they faced the consequences of underestimating an ancient enemy. Fear gripped the Traxx elite, their once unshakable confidence eroding as they realized the full extent of the threat. Paranoia spread. Who else had they misjudged? What other forces lay in wait, emboldened by humanity's return? Within the highest chambers of the Traxx Empire, discussions turned frantic. Plans to mobilize their fleets and fortify key systems were made, but the underlying dread was unmistakable. They had ruled unchallenged for so long, and now their empire stood vulnerable. The humans had struck with surgical precision, leaving the Traxx exposed. They knew that more attacks would come, and worse, they had no idea how to stop them. Meanwhile, humanity, fully awake and mobilized, made its next move. They reached out to the Galactic Council and other factions, establishing contact for the first time in millennia. The message was clear and uncompromising: stay neutral or face annihilation. Humanity had no interest in forming alliances. They had returned to reclaim the galaxy, and nothing would stand in their way. The Galactic Council, still reeling from the revelation that humans were not only alive but stronger than ever, had no choice but to comply. Their position was fragile, and they knew they could not afford to challenge humanity's demands. As the humans consolidated their position, they began a series of calculated, coordinated strikes against the Traxx. Key strongholds, military bases, and supply lines were targeted, each attack designed to destabilize the Empire further. Human ships, cloaked and armed with weapons far beyond the Traxx's comprehension, moved swiftly and with purpose. Every move was part of a larger strategy, aimed at dismantling the Traxx piece by piece. The Traxx fought back as best they could, but their efforts were in vain. Humanity's technology was too advanced, their tactics too precise. Each battle ended the same, with the Traxx in retreat, their forces decimated, their empire crumbling. And with every loss, the fear within the Traxx ranks grew. They knew the end was near, and their once mighty empire now stood on the brink of collapse. As humanity's forces closed in on the heart of the Traxx empire, the leaders of the human colonies gathered. They reflected on the long journey that had brought them to this moment, from peaceful explorers to a species awakened to reclaim their place among the stars. Their ancient legacy was not one of war, but they understood that to survive in this new galaxy, they would need to reshape it in their image. The Traxx had ruled through fear and brutality, but humanity would build something stronger, something lasting. The final moves of their campaign were now in motion. Soon, the Traxx would fall, and humanity would stand once again as the dominant force in the galaxy. The future lay before them, one where they could guide the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as the rightful rulers of the stars they had once known so well. Humanity had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The indomitable spirit that had carried them across the stars millennia ago was alive once more, and the galaxy would soon learn what that meant.